Hey guys, I am of course Von Lagaya, and I decided to do something a little different today. So with that in mind, I present to you TWP Reviews World of Warcraft, the board game. Hey guys, so I'm back again showing you the actual board game. Now, as you can see, I have the desk here, or the box here sitting on my desk, right? Well, an area of it, where the keyboard usually goes. If you can't notice just from the video, this thing is a beast. Like, it's massive. The box for this game is ridiculously large. And yeah, sorry for the shaky camera. I have to use a webcam to record this, but anyway. Just as a sort of reference, here's a standard size 3x3 Rubik's Cube, yeah? That's how big it is. That's how small it looks compared to this box. And I mean, yeah, like I said, like I showed, it's about as big as my fist. It is dwarfed by the sheer size of the box of this game. And there's a reason for that. It comes with a lot of stuff. And we're going to get into that right now. As you can see, we're looking at the board of the game. It's pretty freaking big, actually. Even bigger than the box, since it was folded up on the inside of said box. Now, there's a lot to this board. I'm going to get through as much of it as I can. Well, I'm going to show you the whole thing, obviously, but up here on this side, now there's one of these on each side of the board, as you probably saw. It's called the combat area, so we're going to go down to the one that's on the side of the board that we're sitting on right now and take a look at it. So here we have the defense, attrition, and damage boxes. I'm not going to get into exactly what those are about, simply because it would take forever to explain it. Like, not really, but suffice it to say, basically, depending on what you roll, out of green, red, or blue dice, you'd place certain things in, certain tokens in each box, and those would get resolved during the combat steps. I'm not going to explain combat here because it would take far too long. So anyway, above this, we have the region key. It basically explains why there are outlined colors around every region. It tells you which region those zones are a part of. Above there, we have the merchant deck. It shows you the triangle, square, and circle shapes. It tells you that that items that would be drawn from the merchant deck at certain turns during the thing would be placed here in the shop, and every item has its own price, and you can buy like equipment and gear as you go along. Now, oh yes, right here we have the turn track. This game does have a time limit for turns. It goes up to 30, so that's 15 turns per faction. As you can see, it shows here there's a triangle, square, and circle items. Those are different tiers of items, I suppose. And once the turns with those symbols on them come along, you draw one card of that type and place it on the merchant deck, as I was explaining earlier. The card symbols you see are for the event deck, which I'll explain later. Over here, you have the key. It explains basically what the symbols that you would see on the map mean. So, Graveyard, Alliance City, Horde City, and you have the Alliance Flight Path and the Horde Flight Path. Now, as you can see, like, let's say North Tides Hollow. Since you can see it's a town symbol with a red circle, and next to it the Horde Flight Path symbol. So it tells you that this is a Horde town, and that it has a flight path, so you can come there from any other flight path if you're a Horde player. Up here we have Brill. As you can see, it's red, right? So that means that's where the Horde characters would start. You start here, and you can move on into different zones depending on where your quests are. We'll explain that later as well. Down here, since this one is blue, it's South Shore, and this is where the Alliance players start. It's pretty straightforward for that thing. Over here, on the very left, we have the experience track. This basically tracks how much experience points you gained for completing quests and whatnot during the game. It goes all the way up to level 5. Now, going back to the level thing. You start at start, and you gain 1, 2, 3, and once you hit 4 experience, you gain to level 2. And then so on up to level 5, like I showed before. Now, there's a lot of zones to the board, right? There's a lot of stuff in it. But that's basically what you'd find on the board. I'm going to explain what this stuff means later on. So, well, not later. We're going to go through it all, so let's get into the next stuff. Okay, here we have the rulebook. You might notice this from the picture I used at the beginning. It was the only real decent quality picture I could find to use for this. See how the rulebook's pretty large as well. It's like 50 or 34 pages or something, 36. It's pretty thick, but I mean that's the usual for Fantasy Flight games. They usually do. They usually have pretty complex stuff. So yeah, I mean the rulebook is pretty straightforward. It just explains basically fully about the game. It's in full color, which is nice. There's pictures to explain everything. It tells you basically about everything you need to know about the entire game. It doesn't really leave anything out. And once you get into playing, the rules are pretty straightforward. It tells you about everything, basically. Let's go through more of this. Sorry. Just take a look at the book for a second. It tells you about everything. Yeah, like I said, every card, all the tokens, what each symbol for the classes in the game are, because there are different classes. We'll get into that later too. You have the different dice, 8-sided, quest tokens, the overload counters, which are basically the boss of the game. Because the key to this game is for each one of the two teams to have defeated the boss by the time the game ends. Otherwise, you get into a huge PvP fight, and whoever wins that wins the game. You have war tokens, action tokens. You don't really need those. You just need to keep in mind that you have 2 actions per turn. Shows you the play area and basically how everything should be laid out. I sort of do it like that. I mean, it depends on how much space you have, right? This game takes up a lot of space. So if you don't have a decently sized play area, don't even bother trying to play it. If you don't have a good table, then you're going to have to end up playing this game on the floor. Tells you decision making and all that kind of stuff. Basically, things that you need to know, obviously, since it's a rulebook. Yeah, all in all, it's a pretty good rulebook. Has little examples of how turns would go, how you'd travel, how you can take a challenge action, which is combat, basically initiating combat. Tells you how you'd lay out your character sheet, and everything like that. It's very, very thorough in what it explains to you, which is good. Tells you the anatomy of a quest card, but we'll go through that later when we're going through the cards of the game. Everything, it shows you how rewards for quests work, and again, we'll go through that later as well. Tells you how to sell things, which is easy. Tells you how combat works, which is you determine your dice pool and stuff. I'll go through that as well. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure we're pretty much done with this. I mean, the rulebook is just basically the rulebook. I just wanted to show you that it's in full color and stuff like that. It explains everything. And here's an ad for the card game, which I've never played. It says a guide to your first game, in case this will just help you start out your first game. It's cool that they put that on the back there just to get you going. Anyway, next up, I think we'll do the cards. Okay, so here we have the quest cards, and the event card and the event deck. As you can see, we have the Horde ones, which we're going to be looking at because Horde for the win, and the Alliance deck here, same as the other one, same amount of cards and the same colors and stuff. We'll move this off to the side. We look at the event deck too, but we'll do that after we look at the quests, because quests are more important at the moment. We'll push these over here so that we can separate them nicely. Now, as you can see, there's gray, green, yellow, and red Okay? Those determine the difficulties, so like easy, normal, medium, and hard. What you want to do if you're playing with 4 players, I haven't really played with 6 players before, so it depends on how many people you're playing with, but you want to take off 3 grays from the top of the deck at the beginning of the game, and 1 green. Okay? And those determine what creatures are going to be spawned at the beginning. So here we have a green and a red gnoll. So that's 2 gnolls, 1 green, 1 red. The red one's stronger, the green one is weaker, but it's not too much weaker. I mean, yeah. Those are the 2 quest monsters. They spawn in the same zone, as you can see, Keldanal Lodge. It's a little blurry. You'd get 6 gold, 4 experience, and 2 items. 2 triangle level items. Now, there's a triangle with 1, so that means you just take 2 items. It can say, like, triangle 3, and there'll just be 1 triangle with number 3 in it. That means you draw 3 items of the triangle type, and take 1 of those. Okay? Now, after you've completed the quests for the gray ones, you take those, put them on the bottom of the deck, or put them on the top of the gray deck, and that's it. You can't draw gray ones ever again. So you can only take from these 3 decks after you've completed the gray quests. They gain you experience and money, so you can progress and get your character stronger and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes they also give you items, right? So, like, not just the items you draw from the deck, but at the bottom here you can see that there's 2 items names in red: Jade Bracelet or the Ankh of Life. You get to choose one. You go through the item deck with a goblet on it, and you search through it, because items from that deck can never be placed anyway. You'd search through it and take either of whichever item you want, like either of those 2, and keep them. This is from the red deck, so it's one of the harder quests. That's pretty much all there is to know, really, about quest cards. So let's get these out of here and show some of the event cards and how they go. Let's get these guys over here. Now, as we explained earlier, they get drawn when the turn counter goes to a certain spot. So anyway, you take 1. I don't know why that's face up, or that's face up. Interesting. And that, for some reason. Huh. I guess last time we played I didn't mix it up properly. Anyway, you draw 1 card. This says it's an auction house, and you'd go for the Trusty Mount, which lets you move 3 spaces instead of 2 during one of your during a travel action. Now down here it has a plus on it, so that when you draw that, okay, it's an auction house, so the players would take money from their stashes, and whoever grabbed the most and bid the most of it would get it. Now the plus means that you'd put that down, and it causes an event chain, so you draw another event card. This is a war, so you'd place a token on each of those spots that it says there, and then whichever faction has 1 character in each of those spots at the same time at the end of the turn receives experience and gold, depending on if you're stronger or weaker, which means if you have more or less experience than the other faction. It also has a 1 down here. That means that you'd move the boss Nefarian if you're playing with him 1 space towards where his goal is. Now, if that card had a plus as well, we'd draw another one. Now, this is a special event card. It's a Kel'Thuzad event card. Those are only placed in the event deck if you're playing with him as the boss. Anyway, so if that had another plus, you draw another one. And if the same event card comes up that you've already drawn once, the event chain ends. So this is Auction House. Even though it has a different item, it's still the same card. So it would kill the event chain. This item would not be bid for. It'd be just put at the bottom of the event deck to be used later. That's basically all there is to explain about events and quests. So let's move on to some of the other cards. Okay, so here we go. These are the next cards I wanted to talk about. Basically what you see here is the different decks you have for the different classes. So basically you have Priest, Warlock, I believe, Hunter and Paladin. There's a Warrior, Mage, Shaman, I think, Druid, Rogue, and we're back to Priest again. There's 9 classes in the game. Every single one has their own little deck of cards, basically. So I'll move everything off to the side here. You can take a look at the Mage cards for now. So basically, what you're going to see, there are two different two different sides to each deck of character cards for the powers and whatnot. There's this one, which are your decks for your powers, like your abilities that you actually purchase from trainers or whatever, do your training action, and your talents, which you only get by gaining a level. Now, what these would do would be to add to your dice pool. Like, as you can see here, this one says, add blue and green to your dice pool and gain reroll +1. So, and as you can see, there's a little green thing here, which means that that's an instant ability, which means you have to spend mana every time you cast it in combat. And it costs 2 mana, and you need to be level 1 to equip it. And it would add a green and a blue die to your dice pool, which means it gives you ranged and defense, interestingly enough, and reroll +1, so you get to reroll another die in case it didn't get high enough above the enemy's threat level, which we'll look into as well. These ones just serve to basically augment abilities that you would get from other stuff. Now, I know you're not going to be able to read these very well, but this one says at the end of your dice pool step, you may choose to escape from combat. Basically, it lets you run away. You can't use it during PvP. You get it at level 2. Now, I wouldn't really choose that one. There are different ones which add or augment your ability to gain dice in your dice pool, and basically every other class deck would have something similar to that, but different depending on the class, because each one plays differently. So, there's other decks that I want to look through, which are the item cards. You have triangle. I'm not going to separate these properly because it doesn't matter. Triangle, square, circle, and the goblet items. These serve as basically equipment to change your character's ability to do damage and stuff in combat, of course, and different armor and all that kind of thing. So let's just look at a random one. Soldier's armor. It's level 2, costs 7 gold, and it would add 3 green dice to your dice pool. I'll explain slightly how combat works, but I'm not going to do it on the board because this thing is massive. I'll do that after we look into the actual character stuff. Now, basically, what you do at the beginning would you draw 3 of these triangle items at the beginning of the game, of course, 2 squares, and a circle. And that would be your initial merchant deck, which, you can shop every time you visit a town and whatnot. And you can look through the merchant deck and see what you want to buy for your character, if there's anything in there that's good for you. Quests would also give you these types of cards as well, and after a certain amount of turns, as you saw, items get added to the shop deck. Now, these 3 are random. The goblet deck, however, are just random, not random, but for set quest items that you would get from certain quests that you've drawn in the game. So if it has a red name on the bottom, you'd look through this deck, pull the card one of the cards that you get, or the card that you get, and keep it. That's basically it. There's not really much else I can say about this kind of stuff, so let's move on, shall we? Okay, so what we're looking at now is one of the boss monsters. It's Kel'Thuzad. Now, there are actually 3 bosses in the game. Each of them has their own little card here. I have all of them right here. This one is Lord Kazak, and the one underneath him is Nefarian. We're going to look at Kel'Thuzad just because it's the one I had on top. Now, with Kel'Thuzad, basically, also each boss has 2 sides, a 4-character and a 6-character side of the sheet. Now, depending on the side of the sheet that it's on, they will be more powerful. Like, as you can see, these are the creature's stats: threat, attack, and health. It will be higher, obviously, with 6 people playing. Now, I'm going to explain what threat is during a different part, but I mean, this one shouldn't take too long. For bosses, it's pretty easy. This guy has 7 threat, 14 attack, 8 health, and his combat rules are right here. Type of things that would go on during combat against this guy, and this is where he would be placed, and rules to basically augment the event deck. Every boss card basically has different stuff that they can do during combat and whatnot. Not going to get too far into them, but let's move on to the character sheets. Alright, so basically what we're looking at here is one of the character sheets. one of the many character sheets in the game. This one is for the hunter character, and this one is the horde side. As you can see, it's red. That means it's a horde side. Every character sheet has two sides. Well, not every one. There are ones that are only for either horde or alliance in vanilla board game style. There is an expansion which changes that, but I don't have it. Anyway, as you can see, tells you the character's name there, shows you what race he is. He's a Tauren. Down here we have the health, mana, and gold zones for the sheet, so you can put your health and mana tokens and stuff there. Racial ability, which is War Stomp, adds a red to your die pool. The slots to equip abilities in. And starting gear. Now you can see that this slot can only have bows and guns. This slot can have stabs and swords. It starts with Hunter's Blade in it. And over here you have the slot which is the armor slot, which can have cloth and leather. And this adds green to the dice pool. Now I pulled out his little ability deck here again. I fixed the camera a little bit, so now you can see the card a lot better. Now this one, I'm just going to go through the level 1 abilities here and show you how you do this. So when you bought abilities, I usually end up buying Scorpion Sting and Aspect of the Monkey first. It costs 4 gold. Now every character starts with 5 at the beginning, along with whatever your character's stats would be. As you can see here, there are stats going from level 1 all the way up to 5. When you gained a level on the experience track mentioned earlier, you go up to the level you gain to, heal to that level's maximum, and gain one of the talents, which go down here in the talent zone. Now as you can see, it's only cut off. You're supposed to either put it on top or slide it under a little bit. And there's different slots. Now, you're going to notice that every zone has little symbols at the top there. That tells you what type of ability can be equipped there. So, like Aspect of the Monkey, that's not an instant. That's an ability that you activate when you equip it. So, when you equip it, you'd pay 2 mana, but it would stay active as long as you're equipped with it, and you never had to pay for it again. Now, it could go in either this zone or that zone, but none of the others. As you can see, the symbols have to match. And with Scorpion Sting, it's an instant, so it can be equipped pretty much in any zone on the sheet, except for the equipment sheets. So you'd want to put that there, and then when they're on your sheet, that basically tells you that those abilities are active. You can use them. Now, since that's an instant, as I explained before, it costs mana to use it every time. So every combat round, you choose whether to activate that. Gear has no mana cost and no, well, it would have a gold cost, of course, but no mana cost. It just adds its ability when you equip it. The thing about equipment, though, is that equipment and spells, when you buy them, you don't equip them on the round you buy them on. You'd have to put them in what's called your bag or your spell book. Now, I'll show you those tokens later. And you can only equip them at the end of your turn during what's known as a character management step. So the things you buy can't be used until the next turn. It's a little bit of thing to add, like a little strategy and stuff, so that it doesn't break the game. You have to wait, basically. That's pretty much it for character sheets as well. Now, as you know, there's 9 classes. Every single class has another side except for Shaman and Paladin. Paladin is only Alliance only, and Shaman is Horde only in this. Now the expansion, I think it was the Burning Crusade expansion that they added. There are 2, but this one has a whole new board and stuff. It added those classes on the other side. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, so as you can see, we have a pretty decent amount of stuff spread out here on the top of my desk. Well, the keyboard section. What we have here are pretty much every token you're going to need to play the game. Now, it comes with them, obviously. There's a lot of stuff involved, so let's get right into it. First of all, we have the health and mana tokens. They come in 1s and 3s. And basically, they're just used to tell you how much mana and health you have left, of course. Right here we have gold, 1s and 3s, of course. That just tells you how much money you have. There's a bunch of them, same with that and that. These are the hit and defense tokens that you place during combat. These are the war tokens. So basically, if you draw an event that has a war involved, you'd place the token on each spot, keeping them color-coded, of course. And whichever faction can end a turn with one character in each of those zones gets experience and gold reward. These are the spellbook and bag tokens I was telling you about. They're pretty much self-explanatory. You hold your items in your bag, and your spellbook holds your extra spells. Of course, the bag has an item limit, a 3-item limit. The spellbook does not. These are the little character tokens that you'd place on the experience track and your level on your character sheet. I have 2 out, the paladin and the shaman, but there are a bunch for each one. These are the tokens for actions, just to tell you how many actions you've used up. The red one right here would tell you if the action's been not used, and if it's gray, then you've used it. But I mean, you don't need to use those. Those are just pointless, in my opinion. This is for an optional event boss. If you drop an event card that has a boss on it, you'd place that on the zone that it spawns in. It's pretty simple. These are the tokens for the quest creatures. Obviously, both sides have their own quest decks, so you need to be able to differentiate between the quest monsters. So you put those tokens below them when you place them on the board. These are the boss monster tokens. As you can see, I've placed 4 invisible ones around Lord Kazak. That's because he places himself. That's because you shuffle them up, and you place them all, each face down in certain zones. So you might end up to try and go fight Lord Kazak and then find one that's not him. The other 2 don't have those. Nefarian and Lord Kazak or Nefarian and Kel'Thuzad are different. Here we have stun and curse tokens. Basically, a stun token will make you have to remove 1 die from your dice pool for each stun token you have. If you can't remove a die, like if you have too many stun tokens, then you die instantly. Curse tokens are the same, except with a stun token after combat, you'd lose them all. Curse tokens aren't like that. You have to rest, and every rest action you take, you lose 1 curse token. They also give you reroll -1 and attrition -1. Now, I'm going to explain what those are once we get into combat. And over here, of course, we have the dice. Blue, red, and green. Blue, as I explained, is for range damage. Red is for melee, and green is for defense. Now, again, I'll explain what that means exactly once we get into the combat section. Which, yeah, we'll do that next. So, let's move on. Okay, so here I have set up the pretty much all of the creature pieces, and in every color in the game. Now there are more copies than just 3 of each one, of course, but yeah. And in order to get the proper detail and brightness that you need to see these properly, I've turned on the low light filter for the camera, so it's going to be a little more laggy. The video quality is going to be a little choppy, but yeah, they put a nice amount of detail into these pieces, so I'm going to move the camera slowly so it doesn't blur too much. Just go through each one of these. Now, the red and green creatures are quest creatures. The blues are independents. They come up to get in the way. Here we have Wildkin. Behind that is Infernals. Or not Infernals, demons. Some sort of demon. I forget what they're called exactly. Gnolls here. Over here we have Worgen. Behind that, spiders and drakes. Over here, there are the Infernals. Scarlet Crusaders. Ghouls here. Over here, we have Naga. Wraiths. Murlocs, and of course we already mentioned the Infernals. So yeah, now that I've shown these, I know I said I was going to do combat before this, or next, but I lied, so let's move on to that now. Okay, so, I know I said we were going to do combat, but, I lied again, apparently. I almost forgot about these guys. These are the character pieces. So, yeah, what we're looking at right here is the Horde side. These are pretty detailed too. Like we have it's an orc warrior here. In front of him we have and Orc Shaman. Behind there we have both of the Tauren characters. I think it's a Druid and Hunter. The undead characters, I think it's a Warlock and a Priest. Or Warlock and Mage, I mean. And here we have the two Trolls. The Rogue and, I believe, Priest. And over here, and again, I still have the low light filter on, so it's a little choppy. Right here we have the two Night Elves, Druid and Warrior. Down here we have two Dwarves. I think it's Priest and Hunter. Over here, two Gnomes. I believe it's a Mage and Rogue. Behind there we have the two Humans. I forgot what the other human is, but that guy's a Paladin. So whatever I forgot to mention is what that one is. Probably Warlock, but I don't know for sure. Anyway, now that we look through these, now we can move to combat. So here we go. Okay, so we're at the combat part after much distractions. And what we're looking at right now is the monster reference sheet, as you can see. This basically tells you the stats of every single creature other than the boss creatures in the game. So we have Murlocs, Ghouls, Naga, Wraiths, as we mentioned before. Shows every single one. Turns out they're called Doom Guards. Should remember that, but whatever. And it tells you all their stats, all the abilities they give you that they have that they'd use against you in combat and whatnot. One must lose 1 energy for each red or blue 1 result that comes up. Now, these guys have 4 threat. We're going to deal with these right now for combat, so let's move on to that. I'll get this thing out of the way. They have 4 threat, 3 attack, 3 health. So we're going to remember that. Now, let's just say that these two guys are fighting, okay? What you do for this is PvE combat. I'm not going to explain PvP combat because that is really complex and I don't really have the time to go into it. Okay, so what you do, the combat steps go like this. You get the dice pool step, which you count up your dice pool and you roll it once. You get your reroll step, which you count up your rerolls, you choose that many dice, and you reroll them all at once. You don't get to choose more dice after you've already rolled your rerolls. So you choose your rerolls all at once. Even if your reroll number goes beyond the amount of dice you need to reroll, you can't keep rerolling. It just happens at once. Then you have the place token step, where you place your damage tokens in whatever zones they go in. Now I don't have the zones on here, so I'm just going to sort of pretend where they are. Then you have the range damage step, where any range damage goes through to the creature first, before they get to do anything. Okay. Then I believe the creature attacks, and you defend it with your defense and hit tokens in the defense box, and then those move up and deal damage. And I think they stay, but they might get removed. Anyway, I'm going to explain it all, so let's get into that now. So first, the dice pool step. I'm just going to assume. So let's say I have something that gives me 4 blues, 3 greens, and 2 reds, right? That seems like a decent roll. So you take all your dice, and you roll them. Now, since the Gnoll has 4 threat, anything that's 4 or higher is a hit. So all these, well, pretty much everything. That one rolled over, actually. This was a 4. Or whatever. All I know is it was higher, so I'm going to say it's a 4. This one missed. That one was a hit. So we got 1 miss, and everything else is a hit. So now that we did that, we go on to our reroll step. Now, we're going to have at least 2 reroll anyway, so we roll that. It got a 6, so that one counts as well. Now you go on to the place token step. So I'm going to say... So anyway, you count up your red dice. Those are hits in the defense box, so let's just say the defense box is right here. You move 2 hits in there. Those are what get placed for red dice. Then you have 3 green die hits, so you move 3 shield tokens into your little defense box. Then you check, and for the blues we have 4. So we move 4 tokens into what's called the damage box, which is up here, just above. If you still remember what it looked like, there'd be defense, damage, and down here would be attrition. Now, while you're counting your tokens, you count up any attrition you have. So let's say we have 1 attrition, and you place one hit token in the attrition box. Okay. Now, normally, since this thing only has 3 health, the range damage we have here would get removed and kill the creature. Now, if that didn't happen, if we only had like 2 in here, say, that would come out, it would deal 2 damage. Then the gnoll over here would swing for his attack value, which is 3. You take things from the defense box to basically take that damage away. Now, you want to start with shields because these will deal damage later. So it has 3 damage, so you take away 1, 2, 3 shields, and and it doesn't get any damage through to you. Then you'd move these up to the damage box, and they'd deal their damages as well, which would kill the gnoll. Now, say we had only gotten like that many in the defense box instead of like 3 shields and 2 hits. You take out the shield, he'd still have 2 damage left. So you take the hit out, and 1 damage is left over that you can't get rid of, which means 1 damage goes through to the players that are active in combat. Now, any damage that would be dealt, like say it was 5, you can split that between all the players in combat. That's how it works, basically. And I'm pretty sure those stay up there and deal range damage on the next turn. I'm not 100% sure on that, though. But all in all, combat's not too complex. I mean, you have to factor in the creature's abilities too, because I mean, some of them give you stun tokens and whatnot, and all that other kind of stuff. But it's interesting anyway. So yeah, that pretty much does it for this review. Hopefully it interested you guys to want to go out and actually pick it up. There is a price issue. I mean, the game does cost $90, but overall, I'd give this game an 8. I loved it when I first played it, and I love it now. Because of the role-playing aspects and stuff, it feels a lot different than anything else I've ever played. So I'd recommend you guys go out and pick it up, if you have the money for it, of course, and if you're interested in board games like that. The reason I made this is because I didn't really see an abundance of reviews on this game. I'm going to be doing more at some other point, but for now this will be it. This one took me a while to record. So yeah, yeah, while I'm at it, check out the All Gen Gamers podcast if you haven't already. I'm going to throw the link down there in the old crotch bar. So yeah, go ahead and check them out. Those guys are awesome, and the podcast is extremely entertaining. They did a live one yesterday, so hopefully once the editing's done, it'll be up like next week or something. Those guys are great, though. Go check it out. So yeah, until next time, I've been Von Lagaya. Take care.